together the profound, the deep insights of our spiritual foundations based upon the Old Testament, the determination, as Lavelle put it, on the part of the early Puritans to establish here in the New World the old commonwealth of Moses and of the Hebrew prophets, the very kingdom of God on earth. Therefore, there can be no American democracy without these spiritual concepts. And consequently, America's stake, America's abiding security, cannot be found in mere shallow, superficial expediencies. It cannot be found in mere temporal balances of power. It cannot be found in concessions to or alliances with feudal or even fascist powers that spit in the very face of democracy and upon the common man. America's stake, its fate and future, can be found only among those who, like unto itself, would establish themselves upon the firm foundation of that age-old concept of the divine right of man to freedom because of the divinity which God has breathed into him. Such a spiritual ally of America is Israel. I know that the very phrase that Israel is the bastion of democracy in the Middle East has been so frequently repeated that it cannot but bring a certain smile of cynicism, a frown of boredom to every one of us. But it is in no superficial sense that I would speak tonight about Israel as being a bastion of democracy. I do not refer to Israel as a political ally, which when the chips are down will rally to our side, will mobilize its men and its women too, all the hysterical picketing of the fanatical fringe of the super-Orthodox notwithstanding, will rally its men and its women too and its resources to the defense of democracy. That it will do. And I agree with George Fielding Eliot, who said last night that we will find in this Israel a firmer reed upon which to lean than those who stood idly by or pandered to all comers. But it is not in this sense that I speak of Israel as the bastion of democracy. I refer to something far more rudimentary and ultimate. I refer to the fact that notwithstanding the impression of many superficial tourists who have come back to tell us of the seemingly patent lack of religion in Israel, that Israel is far from being without religion, that Israel is founded upon and steeped in the religious tradition. To be sure, some of the early pioneers rebelled against certain aspects of religion, precisely as the Puritans in America revolted against certain pietistic ecclesiasticism which they also knew. But even the most earthy pioneer heard echoing in his ears the stern command of his Torah, "The land shall not be sold, saith the Lord, for the land is mine." And consequently, from the very beginning, they ordained that no land owned by the Jewish people as a whole could be sold in perpetuity. And from the earliest days in their East European cheder and yeshiva, They also remembered the words, "The stranger shall be even as the homeborn." And consequently, they also ordained that there should be no exploitation, no degradation of the Arab worker, so allegedly maltreated by the Jew. Come with me, as some of us did this summer past, and enter the schools of Israel. And while you will find there many modern texts on mathematics and chemistry and physics, you will find that the principal textbook of the children of Israel is still the Bible. Go with these children into the countryside on cross-country hikes, and you will find the Bible tucked away in their rucksacks. And their teachers will stop them at certain places in the country and will tell of the deeds that were performed in that particular spot in days of old. Here Jotham related his parable about the bramble, which renders every Bible-permeated Jew forever impervious to the toils and temptations of the totalitarians. Here the prophets preached and the psalmists sang their immortal songs. Is it conceivable that a generation will arise in Israel that will not be saturated with this spiritual tradition and will not know of a surety what the Lord requires of thee, but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God? Or attend the sessions of the Knesset, of the Israeli parliament. And you should pardon the expression, you senators and congressmen who are with us, and you may be bored by some of the discussions there, as you might conceivably be when anybody other than those who have spoken in these sessions address our own Congress and Senate. But invariably there will be hardly a single day or an hour but what some graybeard will arise to speak perhaps upon some mundane subject such as taxes or the rationing of butter and eggs, and his comments will be interwoven. I almost said interlarded, but that would hardly be kosher. His expressions will be interwoven with quotations from the Scriptures, and not the venerable graybeards only, but likewise even the left-wingers, from whom you might expect some searching quotation from Lenin and Marx. Instead, you will find expressions from Amos and Isaiah, warning those who join field to field and house to house until there is no room in the land. Thus is Israel. Thus is its democracy today, attempting to clothe in contemporary political garb, precisely as the Puritans sought to do in America, this profound concept of the dignity of man because of the divinity of God, which has been breathed into him. And the same is true of America. How then, I ask, can we superficially speak of neutrality between our concept, our American concept and conduct toward Israel, and this expression of democracy, neutrality between this and these self-avowed adversaries that would destroy her? How can we condemn those who are accused of being prejudicially pro-Israel and at the same time commend those who would juxtapose this expansion of democracy in Israel with that alleged realpolitik which requires no ethical distinction between one ally and another? Since when did America, the real America, the America of Washington and Lincoln and Jefferson, stand neutral in the face of such a choice? I have no patience with that tiny, insignificant segment of my own co-religionists and some of their Christian compatriots who would denounce those of us who would guide, yes, who would even goad our government into rising once again to its high-born part as the champion of smaller and weaker peoples, and themselves at the same time speak soothing and syrupy words of encouragement to our State Department to maintain an impassive and Buddha-like neutrality, who write letters to the editors berating some of us as seeking special favors, and at the same time themselves pandering to popular approval by beseeching the bestowal of equal favors upon Democrats and demagogues alike, upon the sons of freedom and the scions of feudalism, in precisely and perfectly poised equal proportions. In my judgment, there can be no such sterile and stagnant neutrality between the Hebrew concept of the dignity of man because of the divinity with which he is endowed, which takes on political form both in American and Israeli democracy, and those who would destroy it. It is not lèse-majesté. It is not treason. It is not subversion of America's true interest for some of us continuously to challenge the United Nations and the United States whenever the democracy in Israel stands in jeopardy. We dare not substitute for the arrogant concept of l'État, c'est moi, our own made-in-America brand of le département d'État, c'est nous. There is no special sanctity that attaches to any decree of our government that is beyond the moral judgment of every sensitive American citizen.